right, today we're going to do a little introduction to acids and bases and talk about their properties and how they work on a molecular level. So acids, you have come into contact with acids in your everyday life all the time. So some examples of acids would be citric acid, which is found in citrus fruit like lemons, hydrochloric acid, which is part of your stomach acid, carbonic acid, which you find in any carbonated drinks. Phosphoric acid is found in sodas. So there's lots of different acids that you come into contact in your everyday life. So what do we know about acids? They taste sour, which should be intuitive to you as you've tasted lemons before, and citric acid is what gives them that sour taste. They change the color of indicators, and we saw this in class when we did the universal pH paper. That is soaked with indicators, and that changes color when it comes into contact with an acid. It reacts with active metals to release hydrogen gas. So we've done this in class as well. When we did the zinc and hydrochloric acid experiment, that was a single replacement reaction when we did that a few chapters ago. But this is an example of an acid reacting with a metal. And there are lots of metals that will react this way when you put them in concentrated strong acids. They also react with bases to make salts and water, which usually give you a solution that's closer to neutral. So they sort of cancel out bases. And acids, because they separate, which we're going to see today, into different ions, one of them being H+, they also have the ability to conduct electrical current. Okay, so now let's take a look at bases. So bases, for the most part, where you've come into contact with those would be as cleaning solutions. So bleach, ammonia, drain cleaner, all of those things are pretty strong bases that you come into contact with in everyday life. Bases we don't usually taste. They aren't part of our food typically, but they have a bitter taste, which is thought to be because bases would be detrimental if you were to consume them, and so you don't want to taste soap because it doesn't taste good. They change the color of indicators just like acids, but they change them in a different way. They feel slippery, so this is probably logical because soaps of a lot of types of soaps are bases. And just like acids react with bases, bases will react with acids to make salt and water. And again, bases produce OH minus ion, which will allow them to conduct electrical current as well. Now, the definitions that we're going to use for acids and bases are the Bronsted-Lowry definitions. So a Bronsted-Lowry acid is a molecule that can donate a hydrogen ion or an H+. I'll also sometimes call that a proton because if you take the electron off of hydrogen, all you're left with is a proton. And a Bronsted-Lowry base is a substance that can accept an H+ ion. Okay, so frequently that contains an OH minus. So we just saw in the activity we did in class today that H+ and OH minus combine to make water. So OH minus would be one example of a substance that can accept an H+. All right, and it's important that you know hydronium ion also because H+'s don't actually exist in water free, even though we've looked at them that way. It's an easy way to think about them. They actually exist as hydronium ions. So H+'s will always combine with water to make an H3O plus ion, which you've seen before when we drew Lewis structures. Now, since an acid is something that donates a proton and a base is something that accepts one, they come in pairs. So we call them conjugate acid-base pairs. And what you can see when you write out the reaction, so let's say that we have HF, which is an acid, and we add it to water. Okay, when it reacts to donate its proton, you're going to be left with F minus and H3O plus. So F minus, because it doesn't have a proton anymore, could actually act as a base. So it's called a conjugate base. It's basically what is left after the acid donates its proton. Okay, similarly, if a base reacts, so let's take ammonia, NH3, and react that with water, you'll get NH4 plus because the NH3 will accept a proton and OH minus, okay? And so the NH4 plus could donate a proton back to the water molecule, and then it would be acting as an acid. So that is our conjugate acid for the NH3 base. Okay, and then there are some substances, water for example, that can act as either an acid or a base, and that is called amphoteric. So amphoteric things can both donate a proton or accept a proton. So hydrogen can donate a proton and become OH minus, or it can accept a proton and become H3O plus. Okay, so we're going to do a lot of practice with these, but this is just an introduction to how acids and bases react and how they're related to each other. So the two reactions that I showed you here are both reversible, and that's important. They have to be reversible if you're going to have a conjugate acid, conjugate base pair.